My mom demanded I name my newborn after her absent father, and when I refused, she called CPS with fake stories about my husband. So I did this at her birthday party, and she went silent throwaway because my family knows my main account, and this situation is already a complete nightmare. I'm honestly at my breaking point and don't know what to do anymore. My female 32 mother, female 58, is trying to force us to rename our 6-week-old daughter after her absent father, and I think she just called CPS on us as revenge. So my husband Brian, male 34, and I just had our first baby 6 weeks ago. A beautiful little girl we named Olivia Rose. The labor was brutal. 22 hours that ended in an emergency C-section. Still can't really laugh or cough without feeling like my insides are gonna fall out, lol. We chose Olivia Rose because it was Brian's grandmother's name, who raised him after his parents died in a car accident when he was 8. She passed away right before we got married and was basically the only real parent he ever had, so it meant a lot to him. My mother, I'll call her Paula, seemed super supportive during my pregnancy. She threw a baby shower and helped set up the nursery and brought over freezer meals. I mean, she's always been difficult, but I really thought maybe becoming a grandmother would soften her rough edges. I was so wrong about that. Some background. My mom has this weird thing about her dad, Malcolm. He abandoned their family when she was 7 and was an alcoholic who never sent child support or even a birthday card. But my mom has this completely idealized version of him in her head. She keeps his photos everywhere in her house and is always making excuses for him, like he had demons he couldn't face or he wasn't emotionally equipped for fatherhood. The guy was trash and left his family with nothing. But I've learned to just nod and avoid the topic because it's like this weird blind spot for her. Anyway, 3 days after Olivia was born, my mom shows up at the hospital with this really beautiful hand-embroidered baby blanket. I was actually super touched until I unfolded it and saw Mallory stitched across it in fancy cursive. I was confused and told her that her name is Olivia. She got this weird look on her face and said she thought we agreed on a family name. We had never discussed this. Not once. I looked at Brian like I was crazy, but he looked just as confused. I tried to be gentle because she clearly put a lot of work into the blanket. I told her it's beautiful work, but we've already named her Olivia Rose and it's on the birth certificate. She just deflated, started tearing up and mumbling about wanting something to remember her father by. Brian reminded her that Malcolm abandoned their family, and she got all defensive, saying we don't understand what he went through. This was 3 days after my C-section. I was hormonal, exhausted, in pain, and trying to figure out breastfeeding. I just didn't have the energy to deal with her disappointment over a name we never discussed. So I just changed the subject and she left shortly after. But it didn't end there. This was just the beginning of the Mallory campaign. When Olivia was 2 weeks old, my mom showed up at our house unannounced. I hate when people do this normally, but with a newborn, who does that? She brought some groceries, which was nice, but within like 10 minutes she was at it again. She started saying she still thinks Mallory would suit her better while holding the baby. I tried to be firm but nice and told her we love the name Olivia and it's already on her birth certificate. She got teary-eyed and repeated the same thing about wanting something to remember her father by. Brian reminded her again that Malcolm had abandoned her family, and she got super defensive with the same line about us not understanding what he went through. I tried changing the subject to how Olivia was sleeping well at night. A total lie, by the way. She was up every 2 hours. But my mom just ignored me and said we could still legally change it, and it's not that complicated. I could feel myself getting angry, but tried to keep it together because I was worried about postpartum emotions making me overreact. She left shortly after, acting all wounded and saying she thought I'd care about her feelings too. I'm not usually confrontational. I hate conflict. But I've had to stand up to my mom before, like when she tried to change our wedding venue 2 months before the wedding because it was too far from her house. It was 25 minutes away. Or when she told all my college friends I had a peanut allergy. I don't, because she doesn't like the smell of peanut butter. Or when she accidentally threw away my husband's collection of science fiction novels because they were cluttering up our guest room. So I should have seen this coming, I guess. Over the next few weeks, it got worse. She called daily with suggestions about the name change. She texted articles about how simple it is to change a baby's name. She even showed up one day with paperwork from the county clerk's office about legal name changes. I wish I was making this up. Meanwhile, I was struggling with breastfeeding, cracked nipples, mastitis, the works. running on maybe 3 hours of broken sleep a night, and just trying to keep this tiny human alive. Thank God Brian took 3 weeks off from his job. He's a high school science teacher to help. And my sister Sarah, female, 35, was super supportive on the phone, even though she lives in Colorado and couldn't be here in person. Everything came to a head last week. My mom showed up unannounced again, third time that week, and brought her cousin along. As they walked in, she said, "Linda, come meet baby Mallory." I saw red. I swear I almost passed out from anger. I told her firmly that her name is Olivia and to please stop bringing up the name change because it's not happening. She claimed she's barely mentioned it, and I just lost it. I listed every single time she'd brought it up over the past week alone, at least a dozen. She dismissed me as being hormonal and oversensitive, her favorite phrase whenever I disagree with her about anything. Brian heard the commotion and came in. He backed me up, telling my mom that we've made our decision as Olivia's parents and we need her to respect that. That's when she turned on him. She accused him of turning me against family. Like, what does that even mean? I told her firmly that she needed to respect our decision as parents. Then she brought up how after everything she did for me, raising me as a single mother after my father left. For context, my dad left when I was 13, not exactly the same as having a newborn alone. I reminded her that her history with my dad had absolutely nothing to do with our baby's name. She left in tears, saying I'll regret treating her this way. After that, Brian and I agreed we needed to set firm boundaries. I texted her the next day saying no more surprise visits. She needed to respect our parenting decisions, and if she couldn't do those things, she wouldn't be welcome to visit for a while. She only responded with, "We'll see about that." Should have known that was a red flag. That was 2 days ago. This morning, there was a knock at the door. I thought it was my mom ignoring boundaries again. Instead, it was CPS. They're investigating claims that Brian has been having violent outbursts around the baby, that we have unsafe living conditions, and that I'm suffering from severe postpartum depression that makes me unable to care for the child. All completely false. Brian has never had a violent outburst in his life. Our house is clean and safe. I mean, there's laundry everywhere because newborn, but nothing unsafe. And while I'm definitely tired and emotional, I am absolutely capable of caring for my daughter. I know it was my mom who called. The specific wording about me being unable to care for the child is exactly how she talks. Plus, who else would do this literally 2 days after we set boundaries? I'm freaking out. I can't believe she would go this far over a baby name. What do I do now? I never thought she'd try to potentially get our baby taken away just because we wouldn't name her after the grandfather who abandoned her. Edit. Holy crap, this blew up while I was dealing with the CPS visit. To answer some common questions, no, we don't have proof it was my mom who called CPS, but the timing and specific language used in the report makes it pretty obvious. Brian is the calmest person I know. Seriously, in 8 years together, I've never seen him even raise his voice. The accusation is ridiculous. Yes, we are documenting everything now. Brian recorded the entire CPS visit with their knowledge and permission. For those asking why I didn't cut contact sooner, it's complicated. She wasn't always this bad, and she actually was super helpful during my pregnancy. This fixation on the name blindsided us. To those suggesting we get a restraining order, we're looking into our options but want to see how the CPS investigation plays out first. And no, we are not changing our daughter's name to Mallory. Not happening. Ever. Edit 2. Some people are saying this story sounds made up. I wish it was. I know it sounds crazy that someone would call CPS over a baby name, but my mom has always been extreme when she doesn't get her way. I just never imagined she'd go this far. Edit 3. For those asking about my dad, he's not in the picture. He remarried and moved to Florida years ago. We talk maybe once a year on my birthday. He's not involved in any of this drama. Edit 4. To clarify about the blanket, yes, I still have it. No, we don't use it. It's beautiful work, but the name thing makes it uncomfortable. I put it in a drawer because I didn't want to hurt her feelings more by throwing it away. Now for the first update. So, a lot has happened since my last post about my mom trying to force us to rename our baby Olivia to Mallory after her absent father and then calling CPS on us. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented with advice and support. I was honestly a complete mess when I wrote that, and reading your comments helped me feel less crazy about the whole situation. For those asking for an update on the CPS visit, it was terrifying, but ultimately turned out okay. Let me walk you through what happened. The CPS worker, her name was Christina, spent almost 3 hours at our house. She interviewed both me and Brian separately, checked every room in the house, looked in our fridge and cabinets, and watched us interact with Olivia. I was seriously shaking the entire time. The thought that someone could potentially take my baby away based on completely made-up allegations, I don't even have words for how that felt. This is the kind of thing you hear happening to other people, you know? Oh, and because the universe has a sick sense of humor, or because I'm an idiot, honestly both are true, I had put banana bread in the oven right before they showed up. Stress baking is my thing, lol. And completely forgot about it during all the questioning. So halfway through the visit, our smoke detector starts blaring, and the house fills with smoke from my burnt banana bread. Christina was super nice about it though, and even joked that at least we have working smoke detectors. Still, great impression to make on the person deciding if we're fit parents, right? Christina was actually really professional through the whole thing. She explained that they have to investigate every report, but she seemed to pick up pretty quickly that there was nothing to the allegations. At one point, she asked to see Brian hold the baby, and he did this little airplane thing he always does that makes Olivia smile, and I could see Christina softening. Before she left, Christina told us that she found no evidence supporting any of the allegations. Then she kind of hesitated and said she shouldn't tell us this, but the report came from a concerned grandmother who had provided some very specific details that weren't actually true. She said something about normally not being able to reveal the source, but in this case, she felt we should know it was a family member making accusations. I was relieved, but also furious, like shaking with anger, furious. I called my sister Sarah as soon as Christina left, completely in tears. Sarah lives in Colorado, so she's somewhat removed from the day-to-day stuff, but she's always been my sounding board. And what she told me, apparently at a family dinner last weekend, my mom was bragging about teaching us a lesson for disrespecting her wishes. Bragging about potentially getting our baby taken away. I've always known my mother could be difficult, but I never thought she'd go this far. Although, I guess I should have seen it coming considering she once called my college dean claiming my roommate was dealing drugs because the roommate used her parking spot. And the time she reported our neighbors to the HOA every day for a week because they painted their door a color she didn't like. And then there was that time in high school when she got my French teacher put on administrative leave because she gave me a B instead of an A. It gets worse though. We found out my mom has been telling extended family members that Brian has anger issues. He doesn't. He's literally the calmest person I know, like the guy apologizes to furniture when he bumps into it, and that I'm not in my right mind due to postpartum depression. I'm not saying PPD isn't real. It absolutely is, and it's serious. But I've been evaluated, and while I'm definitely exhausted and emotional sometimes, show me a new mom who isn't, I'm not experiencing PPD. The past few days have been a nightmare of relatives calling with concerns. My Uncle Dave even offered to let me and the baby stay with him until things settle down with Brian. I had to explain to him that there is no settling down, needed because Brian hasn't done anything wrong. My cousin Jen texted asking if I felt safe at home. My Aunt Linda called to tell me about a women's shelter that has a great reputation. It's like my mom created this completely fictional version of my life and everyone's believing it without even asking us. After talking with Sarah and getting more information, I decided to confront my mom directly. I called her on speaker so Brian could hear. I tried to stay super calm, even though I was shaking with anger. I asked her directly if she called CPS on us. She acted shocked and denied it, tried to blame Brian's grandparents, who are all dead, and then finally said something about parents needing a wake-up call. I took that as a confession and told her we needed space from her. After that call, I started gathering evidence about what she'd been doing. My cousin Kylie forwarded me text messages where my mom admitted calling CPS to scare them straight, her exact words. My Aunt Tessa told me about my mom's history of extreme reactions when not getting her way, including reporting a neighbor to code enforcement over a fence dispute. I got a copy of the CPS report which showed specific allegations only my mom would know. I found old emails from before Olivia was born, where she had threatened to make them sorry. If we didn't honor her wishes about the baby's name, I sat down with Brian to talk about our options. We discussed a private confrontation, cutting contact entirely, or public exposure of her actions. The more we talked, the more I realized that this pattern of manipulation has been happening my entire life. My mom rewrites history to make herself the victim in every scenario, and because she does it so convincingly, people believe her. Brian went back to teaching last week. He teaches high school science, and I'm still recovering from my C-section, but I started driving again, which is nice, even if sitting for too long still hurts. Olivia is doing amazing. She started making eye contact and seems to recognize our faces. She had her 1-month checkup, and the doctor says she's doing great, which was a huge relief considering all the stress we've been under. Anyway, after a lot of discussion, we decided on an approach that might seem harsh but feels necessary. I found out my mom's 59th birthday party is happening in 2 weeks, with the entire extended family gathering at this local Italian restaurant. My plan is to create a digital presentation with evidence of her lies, prepare a speech about boundaries and consequences, and publicly confront her. I know that sounds extreme, but hear me out. She's been spreading lies about us to the entire family. Some people believe her. I need to set the record straight with everyone at once and make it clear that there are consequences for trying to take our baby away because of a name dispute. I called Sarah to talk through the plan. She was concerned about doing this publicly and suggested just cutting contact without the confrontation. I explained that my mom is telling people Brian is abusive, which could affect his teaching job, and saying I'm an unfit mother. Sarah warned me that mom would just make herself the victim, but admitted the evidence was compelling. She reluctantly agreed to help by sitting next to our mom at the party to make sure she doesn't just walk out when I start speaking. I've also been talking to a therapist about the healthiest approach to this confrontation. I'm nervous about doing this publicly, but I feel like it's necessary to protect my new family. I'll update after the birthday party to let you know how it goes. Am I taking this too far? I don't think so, but I'm still kind of in shock that my own mother would do something this extreme over a baby name. Edit. Thanks for all the comments already. To answer some questions, yes, we're documenting everything. All calls, texts, emails, etc. No, we haven't filed a police report about the false CPS claim. We're talking to a lawyer next week about our option. Several people asked about restraining orders. We're considering it, but hoping the public confrontation will be enough to make her back off. For those saying I should just cut contact, I get it, but she's been spreading lies to our entire family. I need to clear our names first. And no, we are still not changing our daughter's name to Mallory. Edit 2. Someone asked about my dad. He's not in the picture. He remarried and moved to Florida years ago. We talk maybe once a year on my birthday. He's completely uninvolved in any of this. Edit 3. To the people saying I shouldn't do this at her birthday party, I understand why it seems harsh, but this is literally the only time the entire family will be together, and I need everyone to hear the truth at once. Plus, after what she did, I'm not super concerned about ruining her birthday, to be honest. Now for the second update. So, a lot has happened since my last post about my mom trying to force us to rename our baby Olivia to Mallory after her absent father, and then calling CPS on us when we refused. First, thank you all so much for your advice and support. I was honestly in such a dark place when I wrote that last post, and reading all your comments made me feel like I wasn't completely losing my mind in this situation. For those who wanted an update on what happened with the big confrontation I mentioned planning in my last post, well, buckle up because it was intense, and honestly, I'm still processing everything that went down. The week leading up to my mom's birthday party was basically a nightmare. Brian caught a cold from one of his students, the joys of being married to a high school teacher lol, and we were completely paranoid about Olivia getting sick since she's still so little. We ended up sleeping in separate rooms. He took the guest room while I stayed with Olivia in our bedroom. He was miserable with congestion but still insisted on helping with diaper changes and bottle feedings whenever he could. I kept telling him to rest, but he's stubborn like that. One of the reasons I love him but also drives me crazy sometimes. Meanwhile, my mom was texting me daily like nothing had happened, like she hadn't literally called CPS and tried to get our baby taken away. The audacity still blows my mind. She even had the nerve to ask if she could babysit Olivia alone, as if I would ever leave my baby alone with someone who filed a false report against us. I was both infuriated and completely baffled by her behavior. Like, what planet is she living on where that would be remotely okay? One text she sent, "Just thinking about my sweet grandbaby. Would love to have some alone time with her this weekend so you and Brian can have a date night." I showed Brian, and he literally just stared at his phone for like a full minute before saying, Is she serious right now? I didn't even respond to her message. Like, what universe does she live in where that would ever happen after what she did? I spent the whole week preparing for the confrontation. I made sure the restaurant had AV capabilities we could use. They did, thank God. And I got in touch with my cousin Matt, who works there as a bartender. He agreed to help set everything up discreetly so my mom wouldn't suspect anything. I organized all my evidence, screenshots, the CPS report, recordings, everything, into a presentation that would be clear and straightforward. I practiced what I was going to say over and over again in the shower, while feeding Olivia, while trying to fall asleep. Basically, any moment my brain wasn't occupied with something else, which isn't many moments when you have a newborn, lol. The night before the party, Brian was really quiet during dinner. He barely touched his food and kept sighing a lot. I completely misinterpreted his mood and thought he was having second thoughts about the confrontation. I got defensive, and we ended up having this stupid argument where I accused him of not supporting me, and he got frustrated that I wasn't reading his mind. Turns out he was just nervous about the public confrontation because he hates being the center of attention. But he was 100% supportive of standing up to my mom. We both apologized and stayed up way too late talking through exactly how we wanted the next day to go. Oh, and Olivia decided that was the night to be up every hour on the hour, because of course she did. So by the time we got to the party, I was running on like 3 hours of broken sleep and way too much coffee. Not the ideal mental state for a major confrontation, but whatever. That's #mom life, I guess. We deliberately arrived a little late to make sure most of the family would already be there. The party was in a private room at an Italian restaurant. My mom was at the head of the table, holding court and basking in all the attention. She loves being the center of attention. When we walked in with Olivia in her carrier, my mom immediately came over and started cooing at her. She was all sweetness on the surface, but couldn't help making these pointed comments like, "There's still time to change her name, you know. She's not old enough to know the difference." And, "She really looks like a Mallory to me." I just smiled tightly and said, "Her name is Olivia, and that's not changing." She rolled her eyes like I was being the difficult one. The audacity. I noticed several relatives watching our interactions carefully. I guess some of them had heard rumors about our falling out, also known as my mom trying to get our baby taken away, but sure, let's call it a falling out. Dinner was weird. Everyone was making surface-level pleasant conversation. My Aunt Tessa kept giving me these knowing looks. She's had her own issues with my mom over the years, so I think she was anticipating something. I was so nervous I could barely eat anything, which is saying something because I'm always hungry since breastfeeding. After dinner came the gift-giving portion of the evening. Everyone went around the table presenting my mom with their gifts, mostly typical stuff like candles, wine, gift cards, etc. When it was almost my turn, I asked to present last, claiming I had something special planned. This seemed to please my mom, who smiled smugly like she'd won some kind of victory. If only she knew what was coming. Okay, so here's where everything went down. I'm going to try to give you the play-by-play as best as I remember it, although honestly, parts of it are kind of a blur because my heart was beating so fast. I stood up, holding Olivia in my arms, and thanked everyone for coming to celebrate my mom. I said something about how family is important, which is why truth and trust are essential in any family relationship. My mom started looking uncomfortable as my tone got more serious. Then I just said it. I have evidence that my mother endangered my family by filing a false CPS report against us because we wouldn't change our daughter's name to honor her absent father. Several people gasped. My mom immediately tried to interrupt, saying, "This isn't the time or place for whatever drama you're trying to create." But I just kept going. I was shaking, but somehow my voice stayed calm. I connected my phone to the restaurant's AV system. Thank you, Cousin Matt, for setting that up. My sister Sarah put her hand on my mom's arm when she tried to stand up, keeping her in place. The first thing I played was a recording my cousin Kylie had sent me. It was my mom literally saying she called CPS to teach them a lesson about respect. The room went completely silent as my mom's voice filled the space. Her face went white. Next, I showed screenshots of texts where she described her plan to manipulate CPS. She tried to dismiss it as taken out of context, but nobody was buying it. Then I pulled up the official CPS report, highlighting all the false allegations she had made. My voice broke a little as I described the fear of having someone threaten to take your baby away, especially when that someone is your own mother. I think this was the part where I started crying, but trying really hard not to. It's still so raw and painful to think about someone trying to take my baby. My mom tried to interrupt again, but my Uncle Fred, her brother, actually told her to be quiet and listen for once. I was so surprised. He's usually the peacekeeper who hates confrontation. I finished by saying I needed to take a break from my relationship with my mom until she seeks professional help to address whatever issues led her to do something so harmful. My mom just sat there, pale and silent, seeming to finally realize that she had no way to spin this with so many witnesses. I calmly packed up baby Olivia and left with Brian. We had agreed beforehand that we wouldn't stick around for the aftermath. We said what needed to be said and showed the evidence, and that was enough. My sister Sarah called me later that night to tell me what happened after we left. Apparently, my mom tried to defend herself, claiming I was exaggerating and hormonal, her favorite excuse for anything I do that she doesn't like. But several family members expressed shock and disappointment in her behavior. The best part, my Aunt Tessa, my mom's sister, revealed this wasn't the first time my mom had done something like this. She told everyone about the time my mom called the school board with false allegations about my 4th grade teacher who had given me a B+ instead of an A. I had completely forgotten about that incident, but hearing about it brought back memories of other times my mom had gone to extreme lengths when she didn't get her way. Like, there was this whole thing with our neighbors when I was in high school, where she reported them to the HOA like 12 times in 1 month because they painted their door a color she didn't like. And another time, she got my friend's mom fired from the PTA because she suggested a different venue for the school dance than what my mom wanted. How did I not see this pattern before? It's been about 3 weeks since the confrontation, and the consequences have been significant. My mom has been pretty much socially ostracized by much of the family. Several relatives have reached out to apologize to me for believing my mom's lies about Brian being abusive and me being an unfit mother. My mom did send me a message that was half apology, half blame. I'm sorry you felt you needed to humiliate me in front of everyone, but if you had just respected my simple wish about the name, none of this would have happened. Classic non-apology that somehow makes it my fault. I didn't respond. I've never been one to hold grudges. I believe in forgiveness, except for my 7th grade bully Jessica, who stole my science fair project idea, my college roommate who used my expensive shampoo without asking, and that Starbucks barista who always spells my name wrong on purpose. But this situation with my mom feels different. This wasn't just about me. She tried to hurt my husband and take away our baby. That crosses a line I'm not sure can be uncrossed. On a happier note, Olivia is sleeping better now. Still not through the night, but we're getting 4-hour stretches sometimes, which feels amazing. Brian was nominated for a teaching award at his school, which is super exciting. And I'm thinking about joining this local mothers group that meets at the library every Tuesday. My sister Sarah called yesterday to check in on us. I did ask how mom was doing, because despite everything, I still worry about her. Stupid, I know. Sarah said mom is now telling people I ambushed her and edited the recordings to make her look bad. For a brief moment, I questioned whether I had done the right thing with the public confrontation, but then I remembered the fear and stress of that CPS visit, and I know I made the right choice to protect my family. Sarah reassured me that most family members saw through mom's new narrative. I asked if mom had mentioned getting therapy like I suggested. Sarah said mom dismissed the suggestion as ridiculous at my age. It makes me sad that she can't acknowledge her behavior or get help, but that's her choice to make. Sarah admitted she's also taking space from mom for her own mental health, which she's never done before. I thanked her for all her support throughout this nightmare situation. The weird thing is, this whole mess has actually brought me closer to other family members. My Aunt Tessa and I have been texting regularly, and my cousins have been super supportive. Olivia is thriving without all the problems, and Brian and I feel more united than ever after facing this together. I'm sad about the likely permanent damage to my relationship with my mother, but I'm relieved to have protected my family and hopefully broken the cycle of manipulation that's been going on for generations. Edit. Wow, this blew up overnight. Thanks for all the supportive comments. To answer some common questions, yes, we're still documenting everything in case she escalates again. Brian has a whole folder on our shared drive labeled Paula Evidence, which is both sad and necessary. No, we haven't gotten a restraining order. At this point, she's staying away on her own, but we'll reconsider if she starts showing up unannounced again. To those asking if I regret doing it publicly, honestly, no. It was the only way to make sure everyone heard the truth directly. Several people have told me they never would have believed it if they hadn't seen the evidence themselves. For those concerned about Olivia, she's doing great. She's smiling now. Not just gas smiles, real ones. And it's the best thing ever. All this hasn't affected her at all, thankfully. And no, we still haven't changed her name to Mallory and never will. Edit 2. Someone asked if my dad knows about any of this. Nope. He's still in Florida with his new family and completely uninvolved. I haven't talked to him since my birthday in February when he sent his annual happy birthday kiddo text. Edit 3. A lot of people are asking if any of the relatives defended my mom. Just her sister-in-law, my uncle's wife, who tried to say she's from a different generation, but even my uncle shut that down with being old isn't an excuse for being terrible. Edit 4. To clarify something from my previous post, Brian did not eat the entire burnt banana bread from the CPS visit. He had one piece to make me feel better, and then we threw the rest away. The man is supportive, but he's not crazy. Although he did eat that 3-day-old pizza last month that I was convinced would give him food poisoning, so maybe he is a little crazy.